Carrollton, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3.
Well, good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330, FM 106.3. And this morning we are streaming live on the internet on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page, where you can already see my guest. We don't know which camera's on, but you can always take a good guess, whichever one's looking in your direction there. Dr. Brent Harris, he is one of two candidates, I believe, running for the Ward 2 City Council seat. Rory Wojcik held that, I want to say, for about 2.5 years, and got a job, skipped town, and left that vacant for a little bit. They could have held a special election this summer, but they decided to put it in here with this election in November. And two gentlemen running for that seat. Dr. Brent Harris is one of the candidates, and Brett Ledbetter is the other candidate, and he'll be on the program next Monday. So after watching this show, hope you tune in for that program as well and compare your candidates. Although early voting is already ongoing, and I'm sure the candidates are encouraging you to get out there and TCOB ASAP this week and next week are the last weeks for early voting before Election Day, which is November the 5th. Now, let us introduce Dr. Brent Harris, our guest this morning. Tell us about yourself. I'm meeting you on the street. What do I need to know about you? Even aside from the fact you're seeking a political position, what should we know about you just as a person?
So, in general, I'm a kind of guy that likes to get involved with a lot of different things. I have a lot of varied interests in life. I'm married. We got my wife and I met in medical school. I went to grew up in the area over in Tyrone, Peachtree City area, Fayette County. Went to Berry College and Mercer Medical School. We got married down there. We have 4 little kids, 5, 3, 2, and newborn that's 8 weeks old now in 2 months.
I was say I hadn't seen the newborn in the pictures. Okay,
yeah, there's four of them now. So reproducing, that's about it. We're pretty much finished, I think, there at 4. So it's a good number. But in general, I like a little bit of everything. I grew up. My dad was an Eastern airline pilot, and when Eastern collapsed, he crossed a picket line, and so he couldn't go back and become a pilot. He actually became a cabinet builder. And so when I was real young, I realized at an early age that really your profession or something that you went into really shouldn't define you as a person. And so, a lot of people say, oh, Dr. Harris. But in reality, I'm a physician. I went to medical school and got that training. But I like a variety of other things. I grew up around the construction industry since I was real little. And so I grew up, painting walls, doing drywall, plumbing. You kind of name it. Working in the cabinet shop with my dad, and so, and then I also had a kind of a knack for entrepreneurism at an early age. When I was real little, probably about 10 years old, we didn't live in a nice house at that time. This was after Eastern had collapsed, and I actually found a lot of golf balls. Me and my friends, washed down from the golf course. No one in my family played golf. I was like, man, those are nice golf balls sitting in the water. So you pick them up out of the creek, fill up some 5-gallon buckets, and then we set up a little, stand next to the public street where the golf, cart path goes across, and sold, candies and snacks and stuff to the golfers. And me and my buddies, we made some pretty good money on some of those weekends. So that started my interest in business at a very young age. It was real funny. One of my good friends at the time, his parents didn't have a whole lot of money. My parents didn't have a whole lot of money, and he came home one weekend after working with one of those brand new, Nintendo kind of game with a bunch of games, and his parents were like, "Where the heck did you get that? Did you steal that?" "No, I've been working with Brent on this. We've been selling golf balls and cookies and candies over to the golfers." So things like that. And so my wife and I are really pretty plugged in and involved with the local community and trying to help establish businesses and also get other people that we know their businesses up and running. So try to really reinvest all of our money and assets into the local community to try to make it better.
I'm aware of 2 local businesses that you're a part of. What are those?
So
we have 2 that I'm aware of. There might be more.
Yeah, so the U.S. Med Clinic is my main core business that, we do affordable medical care at the clinic. We're a direct pay clinic, and so we don't process or take any insurance. And when I crunched the business model for that clinic, I said, a lot of expenses in healthcare is directly related to the administrative burden of providing that healthcare, dealing with the insurance back and forth. And when you look at like a primary care standpoint or an urgent care or an occupational health care, like, basic walk-in medical services, it doesn't make sense to pay an administration to run that $20 to $40 for an $80 to $100, service. It'd be the same as running your car insurance every time you get your oil changed in your car. It just doesn't make a financial sense. So what we're able to do at the U.S. Med Clinic is really cut down. I took all my basic services at my prior practice and split it, cut it in half by 50%. And so now people come in and they get a much more service in a visit. It's more efficient visit, and the pricing is dramatically less. So people that get this broad, lab panel that before, if they ran it through their insurance, may cost $700 to $900. Now, typically, that's under $200, and it's the exact same labs. It's not like we're using a different lab, and everything goes through LabCorp, same as the hospitals and every other clinic in town.
And U.S. Med Clinic is located at the corner of Cedar and Bankhead.
Cedar and Bankhead.
Right.
Yes,
you have two other adventures that you're into. I think there's two others. Right?
What was the other two?
Montessori School, is that
That's
yours?
one. Yep.
Okay. And the other one's a new snow cone place?
The snow cone place is not mine, but the Montessori
Right, okay.
school, my wife and I, she's his majority.
Why do I think that's yours? Did you support it or something like that?
I own the building there.
Oh, you own the okay. Well, there you go. That's right. Okay.
So the Montessori school is a modern Montessori that my wife and I started, and we started about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess 3 years ago. And we started in the old Goodwill building, and then we've slowly built it up, and we just really took out, pretty good financial risk and built this new facility right on Cedar Street, 800 Cedar Street. And we call it a modern Montessori to really, we want the traditional Montessori teaching methods that Maria Montessori, she was a physician that developed, years ago, with a modern twist. We want to be able to incorporate current teaching technologies in theory as well. So whatever really the student gravitates towards and does best with, that's really what we want to utilize. As far as the Pelican Snowball place, we just invested in the building there. Someone was beating me up on Facebook about the color, and I'm like, hey, it's corporate colors, and there's really not a whole lot to do about it from my standpoint. I'm not the one picking the color.
Dr. Brent Harris, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program, one of two candidates for Carrollton City Council Ward 2. Your motivation, and would you have gotten into this race had Rory stayed on council? Yeah,
I think I would have still stayed on. I would have come back into this race. I didn't. I think he was in the partial term when I ran against him the first time. He completed that term and then ran again. And if he was still in town running for this next term, I would probably jump in the race and try to run
You have
against.
To remind me, is this one a partial race for Rory? Is this the end of his term?
That I don't know. I don't even know the exact dates on that.
Well, what is your motivation for running? What's your platform for this current race?
So, really, I just want to be a voice, try to be a voice of reason on the city council. I think, and really what I want to do is promote both sides of every argument. What I've seen happen in the city council, and specifically regarding the Bankhead Corridor project, was that the public really wasn't sold on the narrowing component of this project. The project was promoted as a beautification project, and the narrowing component was minimized. And my opinion is that because it's much easier to sell beautification than it is road narrowing. And so really what you should do is sell both of them at the same time if you're going to be transparent with that plan. The other problem I had because I do own both sides of Bankhead Highway along Cedar Street, is that the city said they were really invested and involved with all the property owners and business stakeholders along the corridor, along this decision making. And what I found out was that they really weren't. They put little kind of feelers out there to try to get some opinion, but they didn't really contact anybody that had major stakeholders on the thing. And so I'll give you one specific example. So the major shopping center on Bankhead Highway is where Ollie's and all that big retail center is. And it's actually the center where they depict in their picture of where they're going to build this nice new 3-story, commercial building. As far as the redevelopment, that's kind of how it's being sold is, hey, we're going to redevelop. This parcel is going to have this nice new building. Well, when you talk to Jude Creighton at Coastal Equities, he represents the leasing division of that. It's a national company that invests in commercial real estate and retail centers. They're not aware of the narrowing project, and they're not even aware of the corridor beautification project. So I'm thinking, okay, here are the guys that dropped $4 million on a retail shopping center, and the city's actually using a picture of their site to show this brand new building. And when I called them and talked to them, they said, we have no idea about it, and we have no intention to building another structure on that site, nor do we have any intention of creating an out parcel on that site for another structure to be built. So I think, so who's blowing smoke where? And so that's why I get involved with this kind of thing, because some of the depictions and explanations that occur really, in my opinion, have not occurred.
And even if you weren't running for city council at this point, you'd be going against this.
So, I mean, I started raising some of these issues over a year ago. And so my big thing we're in a suburban market. We're not in an urban market. I think everybody would agree with that. Yeah, sure, there's urbanized components of our market in our city, but we're not in an urban market, meaning the corridor that we're talking about, the Bankhead corridor, is not highly residential. There's not high density residential zoning around that or structures. So the population base adjacent to the corridor is not dramatically thick and dense. I mean, most people would understand that. Likewise, because we're in a suburban market, there's very little transportation that occurs via bicycle or via pedestrian traffic, like walking. So even if you look at the Carrollton's own traffic study that they did a traffic study. They did not do a corridor analysis study. And so they only looked at the Bankhead for 2 hours on the same day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And they made basically turning and straights and turn numbers off that traffic analysis. And then they figured out, okay, if they narrow the road, what are these turning numbers going to look like as far as time to turn, time to go straight through the intersections, and then make judgment calls on basically level of service of that road. And so what they didn't do is they didn't put out, a couple month-long, rubber strip across the road to do accurate car counts, which I would have thought they would have done, because the prior accurate count was a couple years prior to that. So they're using estimates and models to try to justify and try to look at what the traffic counts are going to be. And then they didn't do, a full month-long traffic study or pedestrian study to see, okay, how many bicyclists really use that? And then, hey, let's interview the bicyclists and see where exactly they're going. Okay, and then they didn't really look at, say, okay, where's the residential area that feeds Bankhead that people are going to use for transportation on their bicycle into the city? Because really there's not one. If you go out Bankhead, it just turns into more commercial and kind of the bypass.
I guess get the green belt that's on Lake Carroll.
Right, but so I'm saying
the image is if they put sidewalks there, people might use that and come off of Lake Carroll.
Sure, so why wouldn't they come down Stewart Street? So Stewart Street already has a dedicated bicycle lane coming into town, and so you could look at the utilization pattern on that. And even that doesn't have a big utilization if you actually sit out there and look at it. On Bankhead, they actually counted during the same traffic study, and they only have 0 to, I think, maybe 4 people as the max pedestrian at any 2-hour period of time. And so that's a very, very low number. And so if you look at, what make good candidates for road diets, and we're really talking about a road diet here. And if you look at the national recommendations on road diets, okay, you want a corridor that's going to be economically improved from it. B, that's not a major arterial coming into town. So if it is, it can't have too much traffic where your road diet diverts traffic off onto adjacent streets, because that's the whole point. They kind of promise, hey, the traffic's not going to go down. That's the point of doing the traffic study. We don't want to decrease the traffic on Bankhead by narrowing the road. There's multiple traffic studies out there on road diets that have already been performed that did show a decrease in traffic counts. And they did show a diversion onto residentials. And they actually did show increase in actually traffic accidents. So rear end collision actually increased in one of the road diets.
I have your campaign also that, I mean, do you think that this is going to be reversed somehow? They've started the project.
No, I don't
There's
think
2 more months.
No,
in this
so
current
I don't
council.
think the phase 1 is going to be reversed. I really don't think the phase 1 from a business traffic flow is going to be that detrimental to the Bankhead corridor. I think if they narrow all the way down Bankhead phase 2 and 3, it's going to cost an absolute tremendous amount of money. And B, I think you're going to squeeze the traffic pattern down enough where you're going to get a tremendous amount of more diversion onto the bypass. And I think the businesses along the corridor will suffer at that point. I think they're going to suffer a little bit with the phase 1. I think if you go all the way to the bypass with it, I think you'll have a significant problem with the business.
But going all the way down to the bypass is part of their planned project?
So their plan, so my argument is if you're going to do all 3 phases, because that's the plan, is to go all the way to the bypass with it, you need to pass and complete all 3 at one time. Because if you just do one, there's really no point. Like a bike lane to where? We're going to a bike lane to Postal Way, and then we end it. And so where's the bike lane coming from, and where's it going to?
But then to start it here in this first phase and just end it right there, I mean, again, would you be asking them not to do that phase 2 and phase 3?
I don't think they'll be able to do phase 2 and 3. I think the big bottleneck in getting phase 2 completed is Scott Evans Nissan sitting in the middle of it as an anchor tenant. I mean, here he is tens of millions of dollars flows to that business a year. It's very good for the revenue for the city, I assume, for the sales tax. I'm sure he pays a pretty good amount of property tax. And this is what I've told. I haven't talked to Nissan corporate, but this is what I've been told by Scott, that Scott Evans basically said it's in his corporate bylaws and franchise agreement with corporate Nissan that he has to operate on a 4-lane road. And that's something Nissan sets up from a business model standpoint. It's the same thing that Chick-fil-A says, hey, we have to be at a 30,000 or 40,000 car count per day. Otherwise, if it's not that high, we're not going to put a restaurant there. And so Nissan corporate knows that drive-by traffic helps sell cars. Every dealership knows that. If you talk to any dealership guy, they'll all say the same thing. Hey, yeah, it's a little different nowadays with the internet, but at the same time, there's a lot of drive-by purchasing that occurs, impulse buying that occurs when you buy a car. And so if you cut the traffic down 20%, I assume his sales are going to hurt by 20%. But if the Nissan corporate structure doesn't even allow him to operate on a 2-lane or 3-lane road, he's going to have to move. And because the community in the city of Carrollton has caused the narrowing to occur, and they changed the business on that road, basically when everybody goes into buying a business or building a business, there's a certain set of things that the people look at. Okay, they look at how wide the road is, where the road is located, the demographics in the area, the traffic count in that area. They make a business decision to either invest or not invest, how much money to put in, how nice to make things. And so Nissan says, okay, we need, a 4-lane or larger road, period. If you're not on a 4-lane or larger road, you're going to have to move. So what's going to happen is the city's going to get I assume we'll get a condemnation award for Scott Evans Nissan. They're going to have to build him and move his dealership and buy that. And it's going to be $8 to $10 million because that dealership's not cheap.
8:48, our guest this morning, Dr. Brent Harris. He's one of 2 candidates running for the Ward 2 seat on Carrollton City Council. We're going to take our first break. We've got to get 2 in the next 2 minutes. Community Voice brought to you by Oak Mountain Academy and Tanner Health System.
Oak Mountain Academy has offered a challenging college preparatory education for over 50 years. With over 500 graduates, we have maintained a 100% college acceptance rate. Over 90% of our students earn acceptance to their first choice of college or university, and over the past 5 years, our students have earned over $10 million in scholarship offers. Our students are creating a legacy. Come, be a part of our family and create your own legacy today. To learn more, visit us at oakmountain.us.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
All right, welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, and we are streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. Just about 10 minutes before 9 o'clock, and have about a 4-minute segment here before we go to our next break. I want to read some of the comments already posted on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page. Rob Duvet says, very stand-up guy, wishing Dr. Brent the best in the next election, and I wish I could vote for him. Duvet is a Mount Zion resident. Kathy Brown is watching. Kathy McLean Brown is watching. Tammy Yancey Jordan says, vote for Brent Harris. He is the man for the job. Derek Newton, listening to your comments, says, fascinating. Jacqueline Carroll Doss, the shopping center was owned by RCG until the end of 2017. Their sales manager came in the first 2 years. I wish I'd seen that and known what portion of the conversation she was talking about. Their sales manager came to the first town hall, and he was in favor of the project. The city introduced the road diet at the first town hall meeting. He understood the concept plan was just that, a concept. Bubba Barker's watching this morning. Brett Hicks says, what about traffic on residential streets? How do you think that's going to affect that the road diet?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. So once the threshold for a certain road, the level of service. So we're in the suburban market. So this traffic study deals with level of service. And so I'm not a traffic analysis. I'm not a traffic expert. I just read the studies and read summaries of what traffic analysis people say. And so they say in an urban market, people will tolerate a worse level of service than in a suburban market. In a suburban market, we're used to traffic flowing relatively well. We don't like sitting in standstill traffic. We don't want to be in bumper-to-bumper traffic. That's why we live out here in the suburban area. And so when the level of service degrades, which it does according to a traffic study, and that's using numbers that may probably be lower than what they're going to be, you get diversion. And so some people say, hey, instead of going downtown Bankhead, I'm going to take Allman to Stewart to downtown. And so we actually saw it with just the narrowing from on Noonan from, where it was narrowed from Cedar into the downtown square. Mm-hmm. And so I actually wrote some numbers down. And so before we narrowed it from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, when it was a 4-lane road a couple years ago, we had 19,500 cars travel that road. We narrowed it to 3 lanes, and now we have 17,000 cars on that road. They just posted these numbers a little bit ago. This is from 2017 to 2019, so it's cut the traffic down on that road. Bankhead has increased. In the beginning of Bankhead has actually increased on average 3.5% per year from 2017 to 2019. The traffic study, the analysis that they did, said that the growth on Bankhead will only be 1.8%. So all their numbers are based on a 1.8% growth rate. We just proved that we had a 3.5% growth rate per year for the last 2 years. So likewise, if you look at Cedar Street, so Cedar Street's this big street where, the street cutting through, it's right adjacent to Noonan, heading to the downtown corridor right next to my clinic. Their traffic increased from 4,500 in 2017 to 7,200. So almost a 50% increase. Actually, a little bit more, yeah. And so if you look at that, so that's my proof right there that we narrowed a road and we got residential diversion with the simple things right there.
It's 8:53. I hope that you're okay, that your campaign program here has turned into a lot of this discussion. And I'm going to reach out to the city this week. I think there's a lot of things that we need to verify and confirm or explain better. I've got a spot on the Friday program, so tune in Friday if you're watching right now, and we'll try and get that information straightened out for that program. I'll try and set them up if they have time. We're going to come back with about 4 minutes for you, Brett. So
Sounds
in 4
good.
minutes, work us up a good speech here and explain, why people should consider you for the Ward 2 City Council seat.
Okay.
Community Voice brought to you by Oak Mountain Academy, Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330 FM 106.3.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama. Because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
A well-rounded education includes much more than just academics. At Oak Mountain Academy, we encourage our students to find their niche in any of our 42 co-curricular opportunities. Over the past 5 years, we have brought home 5 state and 20 regional athletic titles. Our one-act play and literary teams continuously compete at the region and state level, and our academic teams bring home first place more than not. We are warriors creating legacies. To learn more, visit oakmountain.us.
8:57. Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. Also streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. And I do encourage you, if you missed any of this morning's program, to go back and visit the show on the Facebook page. It'll be there forever. We'll also, if you prefer just to listen, it'll be on the News Talk 1330.com website in podcast form. Dr. Brent Harris, one of 2 candidates running for the Ward 2 City Council seat for the city of Carrollton. Brett Ledbetter is the other gentleman who is seeking that seat. He'll be on the program next Monday, so I do encourage you to tune in for that as well at 8:30. 2 minutes, Dr. Brent. I'm running right now to go cast my ballot. It's 6:59 and 30 seconds. I guess this is kind of a trick question because you shouldn't be near the election place
right.
telling me how to vote. But if I got
I can
30
stand on the corner, like on the block away, and wave a sign and yell at you.
What are you telling me? How are you going to show me? I haven't made my mind up yet, but I'm racing here. I'm racing in there to vote. What are you going to tell me to consider you as the guy to vote for?
Well, I think, really I'm a kind of a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. I look at both sides of an argument to make a judgment. So, take the Bankhead. Bankhead, initially, I was a gung-ho big proponent of it until I researched it. And then I got all my data, and I have to sit on my side where I'm at. Likewise, I look at stuff like a scientist. I'm kind of a trained scientist as a physician. I've read a ton of scientific articles. I kind of dissect problems as a scientist and a mechanic. And so when I see a problem, I want to see both sides of each issue because some of my other people talk about the trees in town and the specimen trees, and I think that's a great topic. So, at the Montessori school, I had a lot of people, all the developers tell me, hey, you can't build that Montessori school without tearing down all those big old oak trees that are on that property because the property is too small for the square footage of the trees you're putting up. For the square footage of the buildings you're putting up. And I said, well, I think you can. And so I took over the grading of that project and actually helped, Terry Walker Grading do all the grading on that site. And we kept 90% of the trees on that site. We had to move the dirt piles back and forth a couple times. We had to build a building one at a time instead of getting all the supplies delivered at one time. But it was done and we completed it. Now it's a beautiful project. It looks like this thing's been there for 50 years because there's, 50 to 100-year-old oak trees sitting right next to the building. If you look at any other developers in town, they don't do that. Look at Tanner. They clear cut everything, and then they go back and plant some small little oak trees.
We got 1 minute Facebook page for people to follow you.
Yeah, you can go to Facebook and follow me. You can go to electbrentharris.com. And so if you're interested in the Bankhead thing, you can go to savethelanes.com. And so really, I'm going to look at everything like a scientist, dissect every problem, give everybody a pros and cons of each problem and issue in front of the city, and I'm going to make my best judgment. Dr.
Brent Harris, one of 2 candidates for Carrollton City Council, Ward 2, Election Day, November 5th. Early voting is going on now at the elections office here in Carrollton, 4:30, 5 o'clock on Friday, Monday through Friday. So, again, thank you for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in. Have a great Tuesday.